Yes, people, welcome back to Process. Today we are joined by a very, very special guest, one of my clients who I can't wait to talk to because we've been talking about it for a while. Johanna Barkwith, welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
I know
It's nice to be here. It's good to be here. Nice to see you too.
I know it's been like 2 months since we last talked.
While,
we always talked about doing this podcast because your story. Obviously we've talked about it previously when we've been doing gym sessions and stuff. But brief background: how I met Jo. I'm not calling you. I don't know why I introduced you as Joanna. I never call you Joanna. Jo.
No, you don't.
But I used to work at Nuffield Health. Jo was so you used to previously go to Shipley. Was it Shipley one?
Shipley, yeah.
Shipley Nuffield Health. You ended up coming up to. What was the reason that you came up?
I work in the NHS, and once the NHS, because of the pandemic, they made everybody wear face masks. I'm massively claustrophobic, and I cannot wear a face mask. It just brings me out in all sorts of shades of panic, and it's just awful. So I had to relocate up to my boyfriend's in the northeast, because, which we'll get into a little bit later, I can't look after myself on my own because I'm disabled. So I moved in with my boyfriend Chris, and the nearest gym was therefore Gosforth rather than Shipley. So I transferred to Gosforth and met Brendan.
There we go, and the rest is history.
The rest is history.
But I'll let you explain your story and take it from there.
Right. Well, as Brenda said, I'm Jo. I'm 48 years old and I work in the NHS. In 2003, I was diagnosed with MS, which was a bit rubbish. It was at the end of my very first triathlon season. So I'd done a whole season. I think I'd done about 4 or 5 triathlons, just sprint distant ones, so short ones. And I was getting on really well. I was really enjoying it. And I started to the very tips of my toes and then up along the soles of my feet and then all the way up the outsides of my legs and up to my groin, just went all pins and needly, which is obviously not right. So I went to see a physio and he said, I think you've got something called spondylolisthesis, which is a broken vertebrae. He said, I want you to take this letter to the doctor in the morning and I want you to be referred to a neurosurgeon. Right, I guess you don't want me to go for my run tonight then. He said, nope, do not do that. Go home, rest, you do not do anything too dramatic with yourself, and go and see your GP. So I went to see my GP, got referred to James Cook in Middlesbrough, and all sorts of investigations later, they decided that my spine was absolutely fine, but I had MS. So, yay. So it kind of really made me reevaluate my life in its entirety at that stage. I was married at the time and my husband and I just completely reevaluated everything. We decided that we'd just carry on doing much more active things, because the thing with MS is you don't really know what trajectory it's going to take. Some people can be very mildly affected, some people can be quite badly affected very quickly. So there was no, this is what's going to happen to you. It's just a case of suck it and see. And the medical profession were very much like, well, you've got MS, off you go. Don't really have anything for you. Off you go. So off I went and stayed as active as I could. I carried on doing triathlons. So training for that. Decided to buy a horse. Because I learned to ride as a very small child. I was about 3 or 4 when I learned to ride, and then gave it up when boys became more interesting than horses, which was, you'll be pleased to know, about 16 or 17, not too young. So I bought a horse so that I could ride, because it's something I really enjoyed doing when I was a child, and I didn't know how long my MS would allow me to do that. So I bought a horse. I carried on ballroom dancing with my husband. Learned to cross-country ski, learned to indoor climb, carried on doing triathlons, went on swimming holidays, went on skiing holidays, or cross-country skiing holidays, not downhill skiing, triathlon training camp holidays, just generally tried to stay as active as I could, and just basically decided to carry on doing everything that I wanted to do and not put it off until tomorrow, because I didn't know what was going to happen in my future. So yeah, that's kind of what I did.
Yeah,
So that's how I was diagnosed. And once the pins and needles had all gone away, I reverted to being completely normal. And you never know that I had it, because I was obviously doing triathlons and things. I had to declare on race registration that I had MS, just in case anything happened. But other than that, I just carried on living my life and just prioritized things, I guess, changed the way that I wanted to do things, I suppose, just didn't put things off.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what was going to happen.
How did you deal with that? Like, well, obviously mentally it would have been horrendous, but knowing that you feel fine now, but knowing that things are going to progressively get worse, that you find in your triathlon, how did you, was it something that it's like you put to your back of your mind and just forget about it and try and get on with life? Or was it always kind of like every so often it was like, it's like when like, everyone gets that kind of feeling like, oh God, we're gonna die one day, but you forget about it and put it back. Is it this similar sort of?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. But it's a bit more like that on steroids, really, because every time I did a race, I had to declare to the people that I had, to the race organizers, that I had MS. So I had to say it out loud several times during the year. And my MS started as relapsing, remitting. So I'd have relapses where I'd be a bit rubbish, and then I'd go into remission where I'd be fine. So I had maybe one relapse a year, where I would, when I remember, I kind of lost my sense of balance. That kind of went a bit wobbly. So standing up was a challenge, and certainly running and swimming were difficult. But I didn't have very much time off work, because often the symptoms that I had were sensory. So I would lose the sensation in my feet, or I'd lose a little bit of the feeling in a leg or something. And that doesn't stop you. If you've got no feeling in your feet, you can't feel your blisters. Crack on. So I just kind of carried on with doing stuff like that. I didn't take any time off. I only took time off work and training and stuff when I genuinely couldn't train.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember all the relapses I had, because I was a relapse, off you go. But I didn't have very many compared to some people. Some people have a lot of relapses, but I didn't. And I genuinely think that keeping myself fit and active really helped with staving off as much of the disability as possible. Because when I was a child, I wasn't very active. I used to ride a pony. I had a pony as a child. I was very lucky, but I didn't really do running and cycling and stuff because my knees were so painful. So in my early 20s, I had lateral releases on both my knees because my kneecaps were out of position, and then that allowed me to be able to do things like play hockey without being in absolute agony. And I was goalie in hockey, so that's like target practice basically for everybody else. And then I learned to run. I ran sort of as training rather than just being able to run, because my knees were no longer painful. And then a few years later, you get diagnosed with MS. You think, well, I probably could have got away with not having my knees operated on, but here we are.
Yeah. Do you feel like when you were diagnosed, you just kind of took everything up a notch, like took the training? Was there a kind of not like a realization, but like maybe I really want to do this certain thing, or was it kind of like, right, me keep myself really busy doing all these sports is kind of keep my mind occupied? How was it for you?
I really wanted to use my physicality for as long as I could. So I wanted to carry on doing active things, and I didn't want to let the MS stop me doing anything just because I was scared of what it might do. I was more scared of it affecting my physicality and not being able to do things than actually trying to do new things. I'd just carry on and go, well, let's give it a go. If I don't like it, I don't like it. I don't have to do it again. But I just wanted to carry on doing active things because I'd kind of realized that I enjoyed doing the triathlons and I enjoyed all of the activities I was doing. So I didn't want the MS to stop me doing those things. So I just was a bit bloody minded and just carried on doing it. And lots of people said to me, oh, I'm not sure you really should be doing all of this exercise, because many years ago, the general advice to people with MS was not to exercise, but now they've completely changed that, and actually exercise and training and weight training and cardiovascular stuff is much more encouraged by the medical profession, that they realize that actually it's the best thing you can do for your body, because the longer you can use your physicality, the better you will be, really, and it'll help you walk and, you know, live your daily life doing stuff as the disease progresses.
Yeah, well, we've seen that firsthand in terms of our sessions, because the more consistent we are with things, the better we get. Like, it's been crazy. The progress we made, obviously we'll touch about what's happened recently, but like we've progressed so much. And then like the long periods of like the initial lockdowns and stuff killed us. So it just goes to show how much it helps.
Yeah, it does, definitely. And there's only so much I can do at home. It's not like I can just go outside for a run now. Obviously people can't see how disabled I am just sat here, but I can't walk unassisted. I walk with a stick, and I've got something called an FES, which electrically stimulates my foot to dorsiflex, so I can lift my toe off the floor, so I can kind of sort of walk. And I've got a small little funky mobility scooter which gets me around outside of the house. So, but you wouldn't necessarily know by looking at me here.
Yeah, you've got a few clips on Instagram from our sessions, because I put little clips on of our sessions. So I'll tag you Instagram if anyone wants to go and check the sessions out. But you are capable of doing quite a lot in terms of doing a lot of leg pressing. Like, we'll touch on about what we're doing training wise. A lot of core stuff, which is something we're working on. Going back to, obviously, after you're diagnosed, when did it start to get to a point where it started interfering with your triathlon and stuff like
that? I had a massive relapse in 2012 after my husband died, so, which is kind of understandable, really. It was a very stressful, unpleasant, difficult period of my life, and the more stress you are under, the more likely you are for your body to be affected by the MS. It's very definitely a trigger. So work stress, life stress, you know, whatever stress it is, you're much more likely to be affected by your symptoms. It definitely exacerbates my symptoms when I'm getting stressed. So I had a massive relapse, and after that I didn't really come back to where I was before the relapse. So I lost a degree of, I couldn't run anymore particularly. I could kind of jog from place to place, but I couldn't really go for a run because my legs would just not kind of keep up with themselves. It's difficult to describe. They wouldn't move as I needed them to move to run. They wouldn't move quick enough to do it. So that stopped me running. Didn't stop me swimming or riding a bike or anything, but it obviously would stop me doing triathlons. But instead of doing triathlons, decided to sign up to swim the Channel, as you do.
As you do, just why not?
As you do on a Saturday afternoon, got nothing better to do. In the January after my husband died in the September, some friends from the Isle of Man were putting together a team to swim to France, a 6-person relay. So I said, oh yeah, let's do that, because it gave me something to focus on in the future rather than sort of stressing about what was going on in my life at the time. So thankfully the relapse in the April time after I'd started training for the Channel didn't stop me swimming. I lost the ability to drive very temporarily because my eyesight went double vision. So I had double vision for a few weeks, about 3 or 4 weeks, I think. So I didn't drive because that wouldn't go well, but it didn't stop me swimming. So I just used to get the train from where I lived to Saltburn and swim in the sea, or I'd ask friends to take me to the sea and I'd do my training there. So that didn't stop me doing the swimming, but it did stop me doing other things after that relapse.
It's amazing that you still obviously were trying to pursue things like the swimming, like the triathlons and stuff, even when you've got that, because a lot of people, well, let's be honest, they're probably going to just be like, you know what, it's going to get worse anyway. What's the point in might as well stop now. some
Yeah,
people have
stop
got
now,
that
shoot me
mindset.
now.
But the mindset that you've had, like you can tell like I know you well. You're like a very bubbly, outgoing person. You kind of like take the piss out yourself occasionally with like certain things. And yeah, you know what? Just I've just go for a swim down the channel on the weekend, as you do. Sort of like little things like that. It's like it's great to see that sort of mindset. And if there's anybody who's going through similar things, like learning from yourself as an example is amazing.
For me, you kind of can't. I don't want to let it define who I am. I've been through a reasonable amount of shit in my life, and I've always come out the other side of it. I have 100% success rate of surviving my days. So, you know, I just kind of get on with it, and I don't know how any other way to be. Lots of people have said to me that I'm amazing and I'm inspirational and all the rest of it. I'm not, I'm just me. This is how I am. I don't know how else to be. I guess I was brought up to be fairly resilient and to just don't let the bastards get you down kind of the mindset. So I just kind of go and do something. If I want to try and do it, it's getting more and more difficult, undoubtedly, but I was swimming in a quarry on Sunday. So I went up with a friend to near Morecambe and we swam in a lake up there. So I am still swimming outside, not the great long distances that I had to do for the channel, but I am still swimming.
Yeah, I know, you've been doing quite a bit. I love that quote that you said before there, 100% success rate of surviving your days. I need to write that one down, because that's something that, like, whenever, no matter what like shit you're going through, whatever it is, just get through the day and get through the next day, take it day by day, and like, no matter what, if you're saying that, then anybody else can 100% learn from that as well.
Yeah, it's I mean, not even necessarily day by day, hour by hour. Sometimes that you know yourself that you can have a really bad few hours. Yesterday I was feeling quite nauseous for some reason or other, and I just thought, I just want to lie down and just shut the world out. So I did for a little while, and then it passed, and you kind of get up and move on and carry on doing what you were going to do. So it's you've survived 100% of your days so far.
Yeah. How was your training for the channel swim? Was it mentally very cold more than anything? What was it? What would you say? I started
in January. It was cold.
Yeah.
The toughest part was training tired. Because the relay swim, there were 6 of us, 6 girls, and one person gets into swim for an hour, and then another person gets into swim for an hour, and so on until you've gone through the 6 of you, and then you just keep going through the 6 until you get to France, or you stop, whichever is the sooner. So the longest time it's taken one person to swim from England to France is 28 hours. 28 hours. That was one person swimming continually for 28 hours. So you are going to swim exhausted. There is no doubt. And even as a relay team, you have to swim as hard as you can for an hour. And then you have 5 hours off, hard as you can for an hour, 5 hours off. But you're on a boat moving very slowly. So it's doing this, and seasick was a thing. So training tired was the hardest thing. So I'd go to Saltburn, I'd go there for a day. So I'd go and I'd swim for an hour in the morning. I'd then get out, I'd go and have a cup of coffee and a piece of cake, and then I'd get back in again and do another hour, and then I'd go and do the master's session at the gym I was a member of at the time. So that would be an hour swimming in cold water, followed by 3 or 4 hours break, followed by another hour in cold water, followed by a sprint session, effectively in a master's session. So by the end of that day, I was knackered. Yeah. And then sometimes I'd go and do a night shift as well, because I was still doing night shifts at the time. So training tired was what I wanted to do. That was my aim. Was I knew I could swim for an hour. Swimming for an hour in itself is not difficult once you've trained for it, but I needed to be able to swim, train tired, so that when I came to do the swim on the day, I knew I could do 3 hours of swimming in a period of time. And as it happened, we only needed to swim twice because we were fast.
There we go. Rapid. Perfect. Are you one of the only people diagnosed with MS, obviously there would have been people maybe in the early stages, but the stage you were at, to do something like that. I don't know if there's anybody else who you know doing similar.
I believe I am only the third person with MS to have ever swum the channel as a relay team.
That's so achievement.
There isn't any accurate figures kept of that sort of thing, but as I understand it,
yeah, that's pretty good.
Nobody can take that away from me.
There you go. I know they definitely should be proud of it. I mean, be proud of it anyway. I wouldn't be able to swim the channel.
The problem is, I know lots of friends. I have got lots of friends who have swum the channel solo. So it feels, I feel a bit like a fraud because I've got friends who have swum it solo.
You're definitely not a fraud, trust me. Like, definitely not.
Yeah, but I've only done it as a relay team, and they've done it solo.
Just got that competitive nature. That's all it is.
Yeah, I suppose it's sort of a bit like imposter syndrome, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I feel like a fraud because yes, I've swum the channel, but I know people who have done it solo, so that's much more of an achievement than swimming it as a relay team. But
you must have always
perspective.
Yeah, you must have always loved the mental challenge, because for anybody who likes this sort of endurance races anyway, like your triathlons and stuff, like I could probably do it, but I would hate every single minute of it. And I would probably do it once and never do it again. But some people repeatedly.
That's because you only play 90 minutes of football or whatever it is. When they start making football matches a bit longer, you would have been fine.
That's why I've retired now. I couldn't do the 90 minutes, 45 minutes maybe, but 90 minutes way too long for me.
Way too long, yeah.
I didn't have to half time.
Do I enjoy long events? I only did the sprint distance triathlon. So they were 750 meter swim, a 15k bike ride, and then a 5k run, or slight variations around about those distances. Sometimes the swim was shorter, sometimes the run was a bit longer, but I never moved up to the Olympic distance, which is 1500 meters, 20k and 10k swim, bike, run. I never moved up to that because the thought of running 10k 6 miles was just not for me. I was never a runner. The swimming was always the thing that I was best at, and I kind of held on for the bike, and then everybody just overtook me on the run.
Yeah, running's never been my thing either. 5k, I've done a few 5ks the first lockdown, and that was a push. That was a big push.
Yeah, it's 3 miles. I think the longest run I did was probably 5 miles. But I didn't really enjoy running that distance, so I did the shorter things. But yes, it was a huge sense of achievement to say that I'd done those 3 things in one day. So no, I did enjoy the triathlons. Yeah.
No, I love that. So moving on a little bit, when was Mexico and stuff? Is that quite a bit later on? Obviously we've touched on that.
Yes. In 2015, I was doing some research around MS and treatments for it, because I wasn't on any treatments. There wasn't really any treatments that I'd been offered by the medical profession that were likely to give anything other than side effects. So I was doing my own research, and I found something called HSCT, which is hematopoietic stem cell transplantation, which is where they give you chemotherapy to destroy your immune system, and then they give you your own stem cells back again to reboot that immune system so that you don't die of an infection in the meantime. And my professional training is in hematology and blood transfusion, and that's what HSCT is. It's in the realms of hematology and chemotherapy treatment for bone cancers. So it was a science that I understood, and I thought, do you know what, that science is sound. MS is an autoimmune disease, so it's my body destroying its own myelin sheath, which is the covering on your nerves. And when that myelin sheath is completely destroyed, the nerve signals can't get through, which is what causes certain disability. So if you could stop your body attacking itself, then you would stop the progression of the disease. That's the theory. And the data that was coming out of the clinic in Mexico was that you had an 80% chance of halting the progression. So as far as I could see, that was a no-brainer. You go, you pay your money, and you travel to Mexico, and you're there for a month, and you have your chemotherapy, and then they give you your stem cells back, and then you came back. So in 2016, I went to Mexico, to Puebla in Mexico, and it was an amazing experience. That it's an amazing country and the people are just fantastic, and the food's pretty cool too. And the chemotherapy was vile. I lost all my hair, which I loved. I loved being bald. It was fabulous. And then I had my stem cells back, and for a short time, for maybe 10 months or so, I wasn't showing any progression, and I was, I was getting slightly better in certain aspects. But then I started to progress again. So in 2019, I went back to Mexico, back to the same clinic, and had the same treatment again. So more chemotherapy, more hair falling out, more vomiting than I've done my vomiting for my life now. That's it. I don't want to do any more. That's me done. I'm out. Thanks. It was awful. And the second time round, it was much, much, much harder on my body, because I'd already done it once in 2016. So I was very near to death a couple of times. I got admitted to hospital in Mexico, and I had blood transfusions, platelet transfusions. I was on intravenous antibiotics, intravenous antivirals, antifungals. It was pretty rough, to say the least.
Can imagine,
pretty rough. But I came home, and now I genuinely believe that my MS has been halted. I don't believe I'm getting any worse. But then, of course, COVID hit.
Yay, that helped.
Yay. And just as I started so I came back, I was back, started work again. I traveled to Mexico in June 2019. I came back to work after the August bank holiday in 2019. And then it took me from the September to about the March to get back to really where I was before I went to Mexico, because I had lost so much during the chemotherapy treatment. And I'd lost a lot of weight, I'd lost a lot of muscle condition, muscle tone, and I was just very, very weak. So it'd taken me a while to get myself built back up again. So I got myself back to where I was before I went to Mexico the second time, and then COVID hit and the gyms closed. And I remember having a conversation with the girls I shared an office with. And I said, right, this isn't going to do me well at all, because you guys stopped going to the gym. Brendan stops going to the gym for 3 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it turned out to be. It's going to take you a length of time to get that physicality back. I was going to lose things and then not be able to get those things back, which was very depressing to know that I wouldn't be able to go to a gym and maintain the physicality that I'd got, that I'd just started to feel really strong again and doing quite well. And then COVID hit, and I appreciate why it had to happen. And obviously thousands of people have lost their lives, and it had to happen, but I knew that it would have a permanently detrimental effect on my physicality, because the same as anybody else, consistency with training is key. And when you are disabled, that consistency is even more important to maintain a standing still space. I don't expect to make massive gains and increase my strength massively in the same way as Brendan's other PT clients, perhaps you would expect, but I do expect to be able to stand still and maybe show some small gains in some areas. But I knew that that wasn't going to be possible with all the gyms shut down.
Yeah, that's the thing with
it's frustrating.
With the lockdowns and stuff. I always think about the knock-on effect. Like, yes, there was obviously so many people affected by COVID, but what's the knock-on effect of people affected by the lockdown? Like, was it worth it in total? Like, yes, there's the mental health side of things as well, but also, like your example, the physical side of things. Was it worth it? Obviously, but it's happened now. We can't say anything about that.
Yeah, no, you can't go back and make different decisions, but it was difficult. It was difficult. And because I couldn't go in and out of work every day as well, because of the face mask thing, I was then not using my physicality as much during the day, because on a normal day, I would have to get up, washed, dressed, breakfast, out the house, get my scooter out of the car once I got to hospital, scoot into work, do my work, come back, put the scooter back in the car, and then go home. Whereas I wasn't having to do that during lockdown. I was working from home. As you can see, I was working from home, so I didn't have to move about as much, so that didn't help either. So it's, you know, multifactorial reasons why I need to try and keep moving, and the gym is just one part of that, and swimming and stuff as well. So
yeah, it's also the mental side of the thing about getting you out, and like that you, because you've always done your sports and coming to the gym, like you're not only exercising yourself with your mind, but also you're socializing as well. Like our sessions, we're having a little bit of crack here and there and stuff like that. The big mental side of it, and it's like that one thing that you look forward to, getting out the house during the week and stuff. So
definitely, I do miss not being able to get out of the house. I mean, obviously when it's miserable and pouring with rain, I'm not really that bothered about going outside, but it's nice to be able to go out when I can. So
did you get much support from NHS, from anybody, when the gyms are shut in, like throughout the whole process? Is there like anything sort of physio wise that they put in place for yourself?
I still went to see, once things opened up a little bit, I still maintained contact with my neurophysio, but I have to pay for that privately, because my consultant wasn't keen on referring me to a neurophysio in the NHS, so I pay for that privately. So I go and see Vicky. I go and see her about once every 3 weeks or so, and I carried on doing that, or I started seeing a neurophysio towards the end of the first lockdown, I guess. So I'd see her and have some tips, but I wasn't really offered anything much in the NHS, by the NHS. Not really.
It's a tough thing to be in, because there's obviously the funds and stuff like that go into it, but like it's massively impacting your kind of progression, but not even progression. You're regressing because of all the things that are happening, and they're not helping you out. So I understand it with the funding and stuff like that, but there's got to be something more to be done. Make things like we'll talk about the gyms being more accessible. You've got like an online MSPT. What's his name?
Yes, I have. Dom Thorpe. He's really good. I signed up for a 3-month program with him, where he did an online assessment via Zoom, and then said, right, okay, you need to be kind of working on this and that and the other. So I did that for 3 months, which helped maintain stuff during lockdown for sure. And I've got some little dumbbells, and I've got some stretchy bands that we put on the top of the door, and a TRX thing which we hang on the top of the door, so I can do bits and pieces with that. It's not the same as having the gym equipment, but it's better than nothing at all. So I do that, and he's really good. Dom's really good, because he'll tailor it to whatever you are struggling with, and he's very understanding of the fact that not everybody can do everything, and some people are better off physically than others, and some people can't do some bits of it, and some people can get on and off the floor. I can't get on and off the floor. I can get on the floor, but I can't get off the floor. So there's limited stuff that I can do on the floor, so I have to do it on a bed, which obviously the soft surface changes the way you have to move about to get muscles exercised. So no, he was very good, and I still do some of the exercises that he said. I'm not sort of a client of his anymore, because I know what exercises he's given me to do, so I'll just every now and again do some of those.
It was more the leg exercises that we struggled, obviously, having the equipment like the leg press, leg extension, even like we started doing like isometric hamstring curl stuff, because we couldn't quite get the full range of motion. Like they were the things that we missed the most, because you can't do squats.
Leg press.
Not even like
I know.
I can't
do a traditional squat. I can't even do a squat with a ball up against a wall. I would get down so far and then I'd just keep going. And then it'd be
and it's the knees caving in as well. That's another thing. So you've having to put the little
little squishy ball,
little yoga ball thing in between the knees to make sure the knees don't come together.
Make sure my knees don't kiss each other. Yes, because that's to do with where the MS has affected me. It generally affects hip flexors first, so it means I have to collapse my knees in, and it means my pelvis is anteriorly tilted, which makes it difficult to do anything really. Makes it difficult to do squats and things. So Dom was getting me doing things like sit to stand, so which is as close as a leg press as you can get, or in a squat you're just sort of up and down, which helped. It's just frustrating not being able to do as much as I would like to be able to do.
Yeah, I know, especially even now, because obviously we've had the issue of me, I'm not at the gym, not at Nuffield Health anymore, so, and like the gym that I've got at the minute probably isn't, because we probably need cables and leg presses and stuff. Obviously down the line I'll eventually hope to get that sort of stuff, and you're struggling to find the time, and the people at the gym at the minute can't, maybe the run out of staff for whatever reason
I can't just turn up to the gym and let myself into the gym and go and do a gym program, because Brendan I'd get onto the leg press. I could get sat on the leg press, but then I couldn't get my feet up on the plate. So Brendan would have to move my feet onto that plate, and then I'd be able to do the thing. And then I'd move on to the leg curl and stuff. And then you'd help with that very top end of the curl or the extension, just to make sure that I got a full range as possible movement, and then move down to the cable machine, and you would need to set up the cables for me to do, because I couldn't sort of stand up and lean over and change it from here and there and everywhere. So I can't just turn up to the gym and just go, right, I'm going to go and do an hour and a half in the gym. I need somebody there, and sometimes that person needs to physically manhandle me. So getting my legs on that extension. No, the hamstring curl machine.
Oh, the hamstring curl that was jammed right next to the leg extension. You couldn't squeeze in, there was no room.
It's a fanny on getting into it. And it's like, oh, if you just move my leg there, no, just and then I'm in kind of.
It's because the bit that presses on top of your thighs is always in the way. It's like
it was in the way.
It's even difficult to get in normally.
Yeah. So I need somebody to help physically manhandle me, to let me do the things. I know what I need to do, so I don't need sort of personal training. Although obviously I'd pick anybody's brains as to, right, okay, what else can we do we think? But I just need somebody to help maneuver me around the gym and move my scooter where it needs to be, and go and get dumbbells if I need them, because I can't just wander off over there and go and get a set of dumbbells and come back again. So it's frustrating not having that at a gym now. So I've only been once in the last month and a half.
It's probably, there probably is similar people in your position who don't have that accessibility. Like we were very fortunate at the time that we did have. We had that one slot on Wednesday every single week. I knew I was going to be there. You were going to be there. We could just book it in. Now that I'm not based there and there's other things going on, like there isn't people. Gyms don't have it in place. That isn't like set up. Like obviously, it's great that Nuffield Health, like not a lot of gyms do have it. It's great that Nuffield Health obviously do provide that service, like when they have the availability. But it's when they have the availability, there isn't like an organisation or the NHS don't have anything set up in place to help yourselves out. And like any other disabilities, there'll be other people. Like there was Ken who used to go to the gym as well. He used to have someone to kind of help him with certain things. It's just how to solve the issues that is always the question, isn't it?
I've looked at other gyms as well, and I went to have a look at another gym, and I'd like to be able to use the pool. So, and I need a hoist to get in and out the pool, which is fine. This gym had a hoist, and they had a disabled changing room, but they had no way of being able for me to get from the disabled changing room to the hoist without using my electric scooter. My electric scooter doesn't really like being hot and humid on poolside. it's not an ideal situation. They're like, And then the doors from the disabled changing room, the handle to slide the door was above head height when I'm sat down. And then the door into the pool was a pull door. So that's tricky. And the handle was too high above my head to be able to get my scooter and then open the door and reverse the scooter at the same time. And then the pool wasn't lifeguarded. So once they'd got me into the pool, I had no way of notifying anybody that I wanted to get out of the pool. So I thought, well, I'm not going to go there. Am I kind of give that one up for a bad job? Because it's just, I can't.
It's not worth the risk.
It's not worth it. No, exactly. Exactly. And then other gyms have gone, oh, well, we haven't got anybody that would be able to help you around the gym, or we can only do it during the day. And I work full time, so I can't do my physical exercise during the day like everybody else can't who has a full-time job. Just because I'm disabled doesn't mean to say I don't have a full-time job. So it's tricky, and I don't necessarily want to use my weekends up being at the gym, because
you want to live the life that everyone else. It was like Monday to Friday, right? I'll work and I'll go to the gym afterwards, and then your weekends are for family, doing other things
or whatever. Yeah. But here we are. So I wonder if it's very frustrating.
Yeah, I wonder if it's kind of better down south. I don't know if it's just the gyms up north, because I know in terms of like, no, I don't know what it's like down south, because there's probably, I know there's a lot more like Nuffield House and stuff like that are down there, which are maybe a little bit more accessible. But I know up north, like we've got very limited, big sort of leisure centre health club facility like, that would have the pool and the gym and stuff, and the people to kind of facilitate.
And I don't think it's unreasonable for me to want to have an active, to go to the gym and do stuff like that, because it is so beneficial for me mentally and physically. And then if I can maintain my physicality, that means I'm not using the NHS as much as I would do if I was more unhealthy, and suffering more with my mobility. So which came first, the chicken or the egg? And I need to maintain my physicality, but I don't know how to do that, because I need the help to help me do it, and that help's not available always or consistently. And consistency,
it's the consistency that we talked about. It's the consistency with yourself. It's trying to make sure that like I said, when we had them weeks back to back, we would constantly just get little progressions, here and there. Until it was warm weather. It was weird how the cold. You say the cold massively helps you, and I used to be absolutely freezing in that gym with my hoodies on and stuff. Aircon blasting.
I went to a lake at the weekend, and it was a reasonably warm day, and we'd been sat in a car for an hour, and I struggled to walk into the lake. I needed James to help me in, and then we had like a little chair that I held onto and just used it a bit like a Zimmer frame to get me into the water. Once I was in the water, I was fine. And then getting out, because I'd been in the cold water, the water was 19 degrees and I was only in a swimsuit. Because I was cold and I was starting to shiver, I walked out. I just got up and held onto the rocks and just sort of crab walked sideways. Significantly better than you've ever seen me walk. And then I got back onto my scooter and scooted up to the car, got changed, folded the scooter up, no problems at all, because I was cold. And then we went to the cafe and I stood in the queue whilst, and ordered hot chocolate and cake and all the rest of it. And then walked back, all the healthy stuff, walked back to the table and sat down. But once I'd had my hot drink and my piece of cake, I was back to being wobbly Joe again. So it does make a massive difference.
You know the reason behind it? Do you know the science behind it or not?
In my head, it's because when anything warms up, it gets excited. So all of the molecules move faster. I don't know if you remember this in your chemistry. Everything kind of jiggles around a bit faster. So that's the same with the nerve impulses through your body. So when you're warm, everything moves that much faster. And because my myelin sheath is damaged in key areas, the nerve impulse goes so fast it loses something in translation. It's not picked up at the other end because it can't catch it somehow, that it's going too fast somehow. That's kind of how I think of it in my head. And then when I cool down, when I get cold, everything slows down ever so slightly, and that mini goes, oh, I get what you mean now. I understand what you want me to do. So it's sort of like a lost in translation thing that just seems to work better when I'm colder.
Have you tried?
But yes, when the gym is very warm, it's.
Yeah. Have you tried like cryotherapy and stuff like that? The other stuff.
No, they generally put you in maybe small.
Oh yeah, they do, don't. That's not ideal, that is it? You need. You know who Wim Hof is? You know Wim Hof. You need to be best pals with him. You used to can go and dips in glaciers and whatever.
He does. My friend James does Wim Hof, and he can now hold his breath for over 5 minutes.
Really?
Which is impressive. Yeah, and he was free diving in the lake that we went to, so he was hauling himself to the bottom of the lake, just to sit on the bottom of the lake.
Yeah, it's crazy what your body can do.
The scuba divers.
Yeah, it's absolutely mad. Because he not only does like cold challenges, but he does things like he ran a marathon in the desert without any water, like random things just to prove people wrong. Because people are like, oh, he's the ice man, he can only do stuff in the ice. Oh no, he
did it in the heat as well. Oh, I didn't realize.
It was in a podcast that like he's a very like extravagant man when you listen to him speaking.
Yes.
So he was on a I can't remember which podcast it was, but he was talking about the podcast, which is crazy.
I didn't realize he'd done that one. I knew he'd done the cold water stuff, and he'd kind of settled himself and got into really cold water. And the coldest water I've been in is 0.4 degrees. So that was a bit nippy, and that was just in my swimsuit.
Yeah, wee bit nippy, I can imagine.
Nippy.
Is there any other things? Oh, what's the little copper? Is it copper coins?
Copper. The Teo patches.
Yeah. Talk us a bit about them.
I find that they have worked there. If I was good, I'd be able to tell you what the science was behind it. They're little liquid crystal tabs. I've got one here actually.
There we go. For people who if they're watching on YouTube, they'll be able to see it. There we go.
See, does that thing? That's it's. I've dropped the other one on the floor. Never mind. The little tiny liquid crystal type things, which is supposed to key into your body's system somehow, and I have found that it's improved my balance. Some people say it's a scam. Even if I stuck 5p coins to my body and it improved my balance, I wouldn't care. They're not, they are quite expensive, but not prohibitively so. But if it works, it works. It's helped my balance. I wear one here and then one on the back of my neck. And it just helps me with my balance a bit more. It doesn't cure it, it doesn't make it go away. It just helps a little bit with the balance. And I've got sometimes wear them on an adductor on the inside of my thigh. I've worn one on a glute where it's been a little bit twitchy, and it just settles the twitchings and pain down a little bit.
Even if it's placebo, if it works.
Well, yeah, exactly. Even if it's a placebo, it doesn't matter, does it? If I stuck 5p coins to me, then and it worked, then what difference does it make? Exactly, you'd take it. Yeah. So some people think it's a scam. I found them to be beneficial, and it stopped my legs twitching overnight, which is interesting. So do they work? Who knows? Does it matter? Not really. Yeah, if I feel it's helping, then then it's a good thing, isn't it? So
yeah, definitely. Is there anything you have to focus on nutrition wise? Anything that kind of aggravates anything, inflames anything?
I've found fizzy drinks aren't very good. Sometimes my bladder can be somewhat overactive, and I can't hurtle to the loo in the same way as everybody else can. So I just have to be mindful not to have sugary drinks and things, because it doesn't help. It can be a bit I just try and stay away from fizzy drinks for that reason. It just makes my bladder a bit overactive, which isn't great in cases. And generally I like to try and stay healthy. There are some people who say that the different types of diets help better. Some people are gluten-free, dairy-free. My friend's gluten-free, dairy-free, because he finds it's better for his stomach that way. I don't seem to suffer with that, although if I have a lot of cheese, I tend to be a bit more wobbly, I've found recently. So if I had a massive cheese and pickle sandwich, I'd be a bit wobbly in that afternoon. So I've just been trying to avoid huge amounts of cheese. That's not to say all cheese, because I do still have pizza, which has obviously got cheese in it, but
yeah,
but I don't have
cheese.
like, chunk of cheese or anything. So generally, I think as long as I maintain a relatively healthy diet, so lots of fresh fruit and vegetables and, fairly low fat foods, but I'm not one for restricting. If I want a piece of cake, I will have a piece of cake.
Hey, you've got to enjoy yourself.
Exactly. So
especially if you've been swimming in the lake in the freezing cold.
It kind of goes without saying that you need cake. It is the law.
If Joe says you need cake, you need cake. Never mind my diet plan that I write yet.
Never
just
mind
you need
your diet plan.
cake.
It is important you have cake in your life, for sure.
It's official, perfect.
It's official, yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of things that have massively helped you from obviously the time that you were diagnosed mentally, would you say keeping your mind active, excluding that to the side, what else has helped you? Because obviously there would have been some very dark times. Obviously you had a lot of periods like when your husband passed away and all that sort of stuff.
Friends. And having a good social support network outside of work and life. So I've got some fantastic friends that have helped me through some very dark times that I've had one way or another. Life isn't all fluffy clouds and unicorns, as it can be rubbish at times. So I've got some absolutely fantastic friends who really have helped through various difficult times. And I think that's very important to understand, that no man is an island. You can't kind of go through life dealing with everything on your own. And we should all have a fairly good support network. And it doesn't mean to say that you have to bore all of your friends with all of your troubles all of the time, because I know I've got some friends I'll go to for some things, and others if I want something else. You kind of have, I guess you play on the strengths of what your friends can offer you at the time. So if I know I want a shoulder to cry on, I'll go to one friend, or I want to discuss this, I'll go to somebody because they've had experience in this, or you just use and abuse your friends, because that's kind of what they're there for, because you would want them to do that with you. If they were struggling, you'd want them to come to you and go, look, I'm struggling, can you give me some help, or whatever. Well, the same thing happens. I think friendships are very important. Definitely, and having a supportive friendship circle and supportive partner and everything is very important, because you can't deal with everything all on your own. It's just, you need that venting sometimes. You just want to go and have a rant at how rubbish work is, or how rubbish your boyfriend's being, or whatever it is, or how rubbish your MS is. And it's just nice to go and get that off your chest from time to time. I've also would like to have some psychotherapy therapy type counselling, but I can't find anywhere that's wheelchair accessible. So again, this is another thing that's I'm struggling with, is I would very much like to go and have that professional space to talk about some issues that that cropped up during life, as they do, but I can't find anywhere that will have me and my scooter in. So I've emailed about a dozen people, and all of them have come back and said, oh no, really sorry, we haven't got an accessible room.
Surely you're like someone who's going to need it the most as well, with the things you've been through, and they can't. There's got to be a way. Put a bloody ramp in. They're probably making that much money. They can put a ramp in. They can do something.
Yeah, it's some therapy rooms are above places like shops or something. So that's not. And so I have a few more to try, but it's not been easy. And sometimes people say, oh yes, we're fully accessible, apart from the step at the front. Right.
Yeah,
So you're not fully accessible then, really, are you?
Yeah.
And I know some wheelchairs, you can bump up small steps. My scooter will do small curbs and stuff, but I don't really want to have to struggle to get into somewhere with a step like this to kind of, you know, get my scooter up. No, it would just be nice just to not have to fight for accessibility to everything.
Yeah, I was going to ask, the next question was going to be, what one thing would you kind of ask for a bit more of support, or would it be a bit make places more accessible? What one thing do you think you need more help with?
I think people need to have an understanding of what accessible means. And I was guilty of this as much as the next person. When I was able-bodied, I didn't understand what being disabled meant and what was required. And you look at a space as an able-bodied person and go, well, there's handholds, there's a ramp, you know, what's not, why is that not accessible? But it's not accessible to different types of people, or it can be accessible for some disabilities but not others. What about those that are hard of hearing, or those that have got impaired eyesight, or, you know, not one disabled accessible fits everybody. There can be challenges. And I've found with disabled toilets, sometimes they're down corridors where there isn't enough real room to turn my scooter. So I've had to get off and sort of physically manhandle it in, or the disabled toilets are so small that my scooter gets stuck because the door opens inwards. It's little things that people don't really think about. The gym is very good because it is accessible, level entry, and then there's a lift, and that's fab. But the pool, the hoist is where it is, and that's fine. But Nuffield are very good, and they got me a self-propelled wheelchair so that I can get from the disabled changing room to the hoist without using my scooter, because I don't want my scooter battery to be ruined by the humidity in the pool area. So I guess it's awareness of what accessibility really means. And I think for businesses and things, they should really engage with their disabled customers, the disabled clients, whatever, disabled patients if you're in a hospital, to really understand what accessibility means for that particular person, or what could be done to improve the accessibility in certain areas. Think about the spaces between bits of kit in the gym.
Yeah.
That gap between the leg extension and the leg curl is very narrow.
Minimal.
And you know, yes, I can shuffle it through it, but then I have to get myself in an awkward position to get into it. So it's just having an overall awareness of how difficult it might be for all different types of people. And it's not easy to do, because until you are disabled, you don't know what you don't know.
100%.
And that's the problem, is you don't know what you don't know.
It's just businesses and companies and gyms, whatever, giving client feedback, like asking for it. Like that's what I deal with like some of my clients and stuff. I think, is there anything like with my online service that you can think I could do better with, or like my gym, is there anything that you would like to see in here? Same with like the clientele, especially like you want to see a therapist. Like if they really want to actually help people, like what ask them, like what do you think we need, or is there anything that we're missing here? Always thinking about stuff. Because they might be missing that one or maybe two people who really do need the help. They might not be set up to kind of satisfy all their needs, and they might be actually missing like something.
Not everywhere can be expected to be entirely accessible for every person, but I think there needs to be an understanding that they need to tell people when it isn't. So I'm a member of a Facebook group for disabled open water swimmers, or adaptive and disabled open water swimmers, and there's a location in Manchester Docklands where yes, they say they're kind of accessible, but the only way to get out of the water is on a ladder, which isn't mentioned until you get there. So somebody sort of emailed them and said, well, actually it would be better if you just mentioned at the outset that the accessibility restrictions that we have are, yes, we've got a level entry to the water or whatever, but the only way to get out is on a ladder. And then that the person who is disabled can then make a judgment call whether they think it's accessible for them. And just having an awareness of what somebody might need to know about somewhere, like the distance from the disabled car parking to the building, or how many steps there is up, if there's handholds for those steps, is there a ramp? Just being more, just putting more on websites and more images of things on websites, just so that people can see what the accessibility is like. Some places are really good. Museums are quite good at putting what their accessibility stuff is like, but not everywhere is. And it's okay for places to be not accessible, because buildings that were built in the 1100s, 1200s, really old castles and things with spiral staircases, you're not going to be expected to put in a ramp to get you to the turrets at the top. You've got to be realistic, but just to know where there's accessibility issues and where they have done things to make things easier for disabled people.
100%. To be fair, I wouldn't think of a lot of things until obviously working with yourself. You maybe say, like, if I open my own gym, I would want your input, like, right, what would you want here? Like, what could they? I wouldn't have probably thought about that until obviously I met you. So you can completely understand where people come from. But it's just thinking about the wide audience and who you can.
You don't
really
know
affect.
what you don't know. Yeah,
100%.
You don't know what you don't know unless you have had experience of somebody with a disability. You're not going to know what they need, and what I need is very different to what somebody else with MS needs, or somebody who is blind or partially sighted needs. So there isn't one size fits all for disabled gym goers or disabled swimmers or even disabled people in the public. There isn't one size fits all. But having an open conversation about what that person needs is a start.
100%. There's one last question I want to ask before we jump onto the little final three questions. The 3 questions that you've looked at. The 3 questions. So going back to, it kind of relates to the last question of the 3. What do you think the biggest mindset shift that you've had since Jo before, I don't want to call it like that, but Jo before MS and Jo now, after. What in terms of learning, mindset shift towards life and thoughts towards life itself?
I think I'm a lot more pragmatic now. I think I probably got myself up in certainly when I was younger at school, I'd get myself wound up about exams and stuff. Apparently I used to make myself quite ill around worrying about exams and things, which seems ridiculous now, really, because I failed my A levels, but I still have a master's degree. So does it really matter? Kind of, I don't know. I'm not sure my mindset has changed dramatically, because I was always reasonably confident and I'd go out and do things I wanted to do and seek out opportunities to do things. So I don't think my mindset's changed massively, but I'm very much more, I'm not going to put off until tomorrow what I can do today, because I don't know if that tomorrow will ever come, or my tomorrow might not be the same as it was today. So if I can do something today, then I would like to try and do it today, rather than go, I'll do it next week. I'll do it next week.
Yeah, I like that attitude, because I feel like I need to adopt that a little bit more, because everyone's in, like, especially in sort of business world, self-employed thing, you're always kind of planning for that next step ahead and planning for, like, right, I need to save money for me, like, get a gym or do this, that and the other. Whereas, like, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Like, if there's something that you want to do now, like, maybe I've always wanted to go and see somewhere or whatever, but I'm like, no, I can't do that. I need to save money for this. You're going to end up keep on saving yourself for this thing that's going to happen in 5-10 years time. You're never actually going to live in the moment. You're never going to, it's like the old say, I can't remember the exact saying, but it's like, what's the point in working all your life for a life that you're never really going to have? Like, there's no point in kind of having that mindset with things. Definitely. So there's got to be a little aspect of it, like, oh, right, I need to, like, save myself or something, but living in the moment is something
Yeah,
I think I need to do a lot more.
Yeah, don't be reckless about
Mm.
what you do now, but on the other hand, don't not do things because you're worried about a future event.
Mm-hmm.
There is only now. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. There's no point living yesterday because yesterday was yesterday and you can't change what happened yesterday. There is only now.
Mm-hmm.
And you can only do what you can do now, but don't put off what you can do now until tomorrow, because tomorrow is a different day.
Good stuff. Come on then, we'll get on the three final questions. I'll give you a bit of time then, because you already knew these three questions because you listened to a few of my podcasts.
I watched your podcast.
You've had prep for them,
exactly.
extra
I've
prep.
had prep. I know.
Come on then. Right. First one. 3 people you'd like to invite round for dinner or go for a coffee and cake with.
Coffee and cake.
Coffee and a cake, double it up. Past or present?
Past or present. I think I came up with 3.
Yeah.
And they're quite varied. I think you're going to go with they're quite varied.
Go on then.
The first one is Bernadette Banner, and she's a YouTuber, and I can go down a YouTube rabbit hole like everybody else. Mm-hmm. And I found Bernadette, I can't remember now, a year ago or so ago, I think. And she's a seamstress basically, but she used to live in America, used to live in New York in the garment district, and she used to make costumes for stage and theatre productions. But now she reconstructs clothes from history, but her period is Victorian England, so from the 1880s, and she makes the most beautiful clothes hand stitched. So she makes these beautiful 1890s dresses and garments from undergarments upwards, so from chemises and corsetry to everything on top. And she makes it all by hand, and sometimes all of it like hand sewing. Although she does use her little 1890s Singer sewing machine. And to watch her sew these tiny, tiny, tiny little seams and tiny, tiny little stitches when my fingers can't even do buttons is a joy to watch. It's very therapeutic, and she makes the most beautiful garments. So I'd like to go for dinner with her because she just sounds like a lot of fun. She'll have a lot of knowledge. I enjoy history. I enjoy corsetry and the history of clothing and stuff like that. So I think she'd be a fab person to go for cake with. And she seems to like cake because she's often has cake on her YouTube.
Everyone's got it. If you don't like cake.
I don't like cake, I know, exactly. So that was probably my first one. I jumped to her immediately, and then I thought, I don't know. So then I went with Fred Dibner because I really quite like a good stationary engine and a good steam roller. I like to go to fairs where there's like steam engines and stuff. My father used to have a stationary engine when I was a child, so we used to go around fairs from time to time, and I just like the noise and the sound and all the engineering that goes in. So my father's an electrical engineer, so I kind of got that history, that enjoyment of engineering from him, I guess. So he was another, I think he'd be quite fun to talk to about his, obviously he's dead now, but all of his experiences and how much life has changed from when he was a boy. It'd be great to bring him back to life so that he can see what technology is now, and then compare it to how it was when he was my age or whatever. So I think that would be quite good. And the other one is Albert Pierpoint, and you won't know who he is.
No.
He's England's last hangman.
Oh.
Yeah,
wow.
I read a book a few years ago, A Diary of a Hangman, and it was fascinating. And it sort of went into the nitty-gritty of how one goes about hanging an individual in prisons, but also the psychology behind it and what you need, who you need to be as a person to be able to do that job, and what things you need to. Yeah, it was fascinating. And I think he would be to talk about the psychology and how it affected him and other hangmen, how that taking of another person's life affected them psychologically. I think that would be fascinating.
Yeah, you'd have to just shut it out, wouldn't you? Unless
Well,
you've just got
I
someone who's
don't,
got
I
no
don't
remorse
know.
and no emotion.
But
There is people like that.
they do it very, very quickly. So from the time that the hangman enters the room where the prisoner is to the time the prisoner is dead is a matter of minutes. I mean, it's very, very short space of time, but they have to make sure that the prisoner, obviously capital punishment, is not a thing anymore, but they had to make sure that the prisoner was dispatched as quickly as possible so that it was as less distressing for everybody as possible. So there was quite complicated calculations about how far they had to drop to break their neck. It's all to do with their weight and how high they have to fall, because they wanted it to be as painless as possible, as efficient as possible.
But nobody really knows how painful it actually is. Surely there's no way of actually knowing, because you can't bring someone back.
No, but if you don't do it well, you strangle somebody, which is unpleasant. Whereas if you do it well, you snap their neck, and that's fairly quick. So he would be a fascinating individual to have supper with, I feel.
That is a very interesting
That's
trio.
very random. That is a very...
What cake would you have? That's the question, actually.
What cake? Well, it'd have to be carrot cake, I think.
Carrot cake. Lovely. I love a carrot cake. Right, question number 2. Because obviously a personal trainer.
Yes.
See, who would you like to train with? 3 people. I had to keep the questions in. Who would you want to train with?
Yeah. Eddie the Beast Hall.
Yeah.
Because he just doesn't take himself far too seriously at all, does he?
Yeah.
A friend of mine said I should watch the video he did with Niall Wilson, when Niall Wilson, who's the gymnast taught him how to do a backflip. And that was just hilarious, because he was wearing a pink leotard. Have you seen it?
I don't think I've seen of it, but I haven't actually watched it.
And he did. Niall Wilson managed to get him to do a backflip. And that's pretty impressive, given how tall he is and how big Eddie Hall is. But he doesn't take himself seriously. And that's what I quite like about him. And I've seen the other video where Niall Wilson went to do some strongman stuff with Eddie Hall, and they were just having a right laugh. And I just think it would be a bit of a laugh, really. He just doesn't take himself too seriously. And I like that, because he could be very much of, obviously strongman can be a serious thing, but he just doesn't seem to take himself seriously. He takes the training seriously, but not himself, which I think would be a lot of fun.
He's just a normal bloke from Stoke.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's what he's from. I think it's Stoke anyway.
He just seems like a bit of a laugh, really. Yeah. So that was him. So the next one, I'm going to go with Lewis Pugh. You won't know who he is.
Lewis Pugh, no, I don't know who that is.
Swimmer, and he's South African, and he is currently swimming across the mouth of the fastest moving glacier in the world.
Oh God.
To highlight climate change and stuff, because obviously the rising waters, if the glaciers melt, is a bit of a serious situation. So he's swimming skins, just in his swimming trunks and a smile, through across and it's got a really, I wouldn't even know how to pronounce it. It's a glacier, and it moves at 40 meters a day, this glacier, so it's moving quite fast. So there's only limited opportunities for him to be able to swim in open water where he's not going to get knocked about by ice flow coming past. And he's got some amazing videos on his Facebook about, because it's obviously a little bit nippy, and he swallows a thermometer every day so that they can track what his internal body temperature is, so that they have a better idea of, because obviously it's just above freezing, the water. So, and he's in it for sort of 40 minutes.
A long time, I know.
Yeah,
that's
so
crazy,
I think he'd be impressive. And I've seen him speak, or I've heard him speak at an event in the Lake District, a chill swim event in the Lake District, and he was fairly inspiring as to what makes him tick and his passion for climate change and stuff. So I think he'd be pretty cool to train with.
Love that.
So that's
love that.
Number two.
Number 2.
Number 3 is also a swimmer, and he's Martin Strel, and he swam the length of the Amazon from start to finish.
God.
And that came with all manner of huge barriers to overcome, language, lots of different tribes, beasties, creepy crawlies,
I was going to say, crocodiles and that, yeah?
Yeah, you name it. There was stuff he had to overcome to do that, and he did it. And it was flow assisted, but it's still thousands and thousands of miles. It's a ridiculous length of time, and he had a massive team support network behind him. And that's the same with Lewis Pugh, is that he's got a massive set of people behind him. He does the swim, but he's got all these people supporting him, which is kind of what you need in life, isn't it? You need all these people to help support you through life. So those are the 3 people that I would train with. Eddie the Beast Hall, because he'd be hilarious. Lewis Pugh and Martin Strel.
Perfect. I love that. Come on then, last question. One thing that you would say to yourself 10 years ago.
I've been trying to decide what to say about this since I watched your podcast last week, going, oh God, I don't know. Because I'm not one for regrets, I guess, or not regrets, or, you know what, if I'm very much of seize the day, really. If I want to do something, I'll do it. So there isn't anything much in my life that I can think of that I'd wish I'd done. So I don't know. I really don't know. And I know that's not an answer, is it? But I don't know. I don't know what I'd say.
Hello, maybe? Nice little introduction.
Hello? Would you like some cake?
Would you like some cake?
That's kind of, not eat cake. I genuinely don't know. And I have been trying to set my mind to it since your podcast last week. But I genuinely can't think, other than maybe seize the day. That's kind of, but I've always been like that. Don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today.
Yeah.
If you want to do something, find a way to do it. I think that's probably
just be Jo. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Just keep doing what I'm doing, and just keep doing what I'm doing, and don't pass up opportunities when they arise, I guess, because you never know what will come from it. So
perfect. I quite like that answer. I quite like that, the fact that you don't know because you're in that sort of mindset. You can tell that it's just take things as it comes, and
don't try not to stress and fret about past or future, and just do what you want to do, really, I suppose.
No, I love that. Lovely way to wrap up. Well, it was an absolute pleasure, Jo. I'm so glad we've done this.
Fab.
Really, really glad we've done this. Really enjoyed it. Like I said, I'll tag your Instagram in the comments in the show notes for the podcast. If anybody would like to check out, Jo, some of the things that we've been doing in our sessions, but we need to try and organise something. Find some sort of way to get back to it down the line, because I've missed the sessions and I missed the chats about stuff.
I've missed the crack for sure, definitely. I've missed the training as well, but I have definitely missed the crack. So it's nice to see your face.
Oh, thank you very much. I'll have to, when we wrap up the podcast, I'll have to introduce you to the you haven't seen little Lola yet, have you?
No, I haven't. No,
I'll have to show you that. But like I said, your story is massively inspiring. If people listening to this don't get inspired by it or anything, but if you can share the podcast around with a friend, anybody, I'm sure you'll share it on Facebook. I'll share it on Facebook. It's on YouTube. Spread the word, and hopefully there might be people out there who can maybe listen to this who maybe suffer from MS or any other disabilities themselves, who can kind of relate to it and maybe reach out and something good. As long as it affects one person, I always say, as long as the podcast puts a smile on one person's face, does anything positive, then I'm happy.
Then we're happy.
No, thank you very much, Jo. It's been an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure. See you later.